Hi everybody, welcome to Fireside Stories. I'm Priscilla, and the first story I'm going to read today is by Leah Bouwens, and it's from the tomfoolery edition that was Crazy Adventure Stories. This is called Green Footprints. There was once a very unhappy man who worked in a skyscraper. One day he was working in his office when he noticed that there were green footprints right outside his door. He went to investigate and found an arrow pointing in the direction of the footprint. He followed the arrows until he found a bow and arrow waiting for him. Ahead of him the footprints continued. He walked through a set of double doors and encountered a huge swarm of bees. Quickly he closed the door before the bees could get to him. If he wanted to follow the footprints, he'd have to run through the bees. He looked through the window and saw the door to the stairs that the footprints disappeared through. He ran through the bees to the other door and only stopped when he reached the landing up to the stairs. He followed the footprints up the stairs and he found another door that was the entrance to the next floor up. There were people with white drama masks on. They stood staring at him. He'd have to punch through just like he had for the bees. He pushed open the door and ran through all the people in the mass. When he reached the door, he opened it and was shocked to find his nephew in his monster pajamas. He was holding a green paintbrush and his little feet were covered in green paint. The man asked his nephew what he was doing at his office, and his nephew said, "Uncle Jake, I just want to see you smile." That was by Leah Bouwens. The next story is one I wrote. It's called Walking the Rim of the Galaxy. Walking back home along the rim of the galaxy, Astrid ran through her to-do list in her mind. Stop at Neptune for groceries, wine especially, Neptune had the best wine, pick up her dog at the pet sitters on Mars, take care of that pesky problem on Earth. She sighed. Her feet hurt, and she wanted nothing more to get home to Venus, hide beneath those chemical clouds that made prying eyes think no one was at home. She had been thinking of nothing other than closing the door, kicking off her shoes, pouring herself a glass of wine, and sinking down into her cloud recliner with Pixie, her Venus hound. But there was Earth to think about. She strode down to Neptune's Stop and Shop and grabbed a few Milky Way bars, a bottle of moon wine, and a solar fish and chips dinner. Striding off towards Mars, the concern for Earth came back to her mind. No matter how fast she walked or how many games of solitaire she played on her galaxy glasses, she couldn't get the nagging problem out of her mind. There was nothing for it but to pick up Pixie and head down to Earth. As she floated down, she felt a little like Mary Poppins without the umbrella. Except, unlike Mary Poppins, there were no miracles she could work out to stop the polar caps from melting, to stop the water from rising, to end poverty or racism or pandemics or cold hearts. They were human problems that required human solutions. She arrived in the middle of the pandemic and walked the largely empty streets. Not that anyone could see her, or at least most couldn't see her. She found herself wandering out of town into the rural stretches where she could at least see an eagle fly, or stop to talk to a fox, or even a cow. Crossing a bridge, she came upon a young girl digging in the mud along the river banks. The girl's hands were covered in brown, wet earth, and she had a smudge on her cheek where she wiped a stray hair aside. She plunged her hands all the way up to her wrists in the muck and then tugged. Whatever she was pulling finally gave with a sucky noise, and the force of her pull sent her sprawling backwards. The girl stared at the bone she unearthed, a large mammal's femur by the looks of it, and caught sight of Astrid watching her. She could see Astrid, which was a good sign. "It's a dinosaur bone," the young girl called, waving the femur at her. And then she shrugged and grinned. "Well, probably only from some dead cow, but still," she laughed, "you won't find a dinosaur bone if you don't pull up a few cow bones first, my mom always says." "Your mom sounds quite smart," Astrid called down to her. "She is," the girl answered. "Work and imagination," she's always saying. "The world needs your work and your imagination." "Yes, it does," Astrid answered. "Yours especially," she whispered on the wind. She waved to the girl and walked on, stopping to place something where the path from the river met the road. She didn't turn to see if the girl was watching. She hoped. It was all she could do. plant the seed, and hope. She heard the girl running up the path, and when Astrid reached the corner, she took a quick peek back then. The girl stopped to pick something up, looked at it a moment, gazed at Astrid, and smiled, and slipped the treasure into her pocket. Astrid waved and walked on. It was planted, the seed. Now she would hope that work and imagination would find a way in the fertile soil of a young mind. The last story I'm going to read is by Hannah Bouwens, and it's from the edition of Tomfoolery that was on kindness. And this is called Gracie May, Maisie Ray, Riley Kate, Lucy Joe. Beep, 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 screamed the fire alarm. At first I thought it was nothing, just Mom burning bacon in the oven. Usually the smoke detector only goes off for a few seconds before someone fans it with a pot holder, kitchen towel, magazine, whatever. The alarm just kept going. Mom's voice came echoing up the stairs. I went down the stairs and all I had to see were the flames from the gas stove licking the walls, climbing higher and higher. Mom was paralyzed, standing in the kitchen. "Mom, come on," I screamed. "What about Baxter and Daisy?" Baxter, the family dog, came running when he heard his name, but Daisy, the cat, on the other hand, was nowhere to be seen. "I'll find her. You go with Baxter. Run." Mom ran out the door with Baxter trailing at her feet. I started running around the house, steering clear of the kitchen and the fire. I saw a blur of black and white fur streaking out the door. "Daisy!" I ran outside after her and grabbed her before she could run off. "Mom, call the fire department." Mom was in a daze. I pulled her phone out of her pocket and dialed 911 as fast as I could. The fire kept burning through our wall. Within a few minutes I could hear the sirens. "Move away from the house," a man with a face mask and big brown coat and pants said. We all ran away from the house and a jet of water came shooting out of the hose, directed toward the growing black hole in the side of our house. Only a few seconds later a red car drove up our driveway. "I saw the flames from the village and I came right away." Sheila Brown, the one person in town who feels like she needs to know everyone's business, of course, was the first person to come see if we were okay. Sheila came over and hugged me and my mom. "You'll need someone to stay with, right?" "Of course, right. You can stay with me." Everyone in our small town hated Sheila. She was such a busybody. Sheila's hug must have broken Mom out of her shock, and she accepted Sheila's offer. "We'll need people to help rebuild your kitchen because we all know you can't do it alone." It kind of came off as rude, but Sheila didn't notice, and she was just kept talking. And before I knew it, I was riding into the village in Sheila's car with Baxter and Daisy on my lap and my mom talking to Sheila. We pulled up to her house and went inside. 2 cats came over to greet us. "You guys can stay in this room for the night." I fell asleep instantly. I woke up and was confused for a little bit before I realized where I was. Sheila's house. The events of the night before came rushing back into my head. The kitchen burning. The smell of waffles and sausage filled the air. I wandered into the kitchen, still in the clothes from the day before. "Good morning," sang Sheila. Mom was sitting at the table eating a waffle. "Why don't we go shopping today?" Sheila suggested. "Sure, I don't see why not," said Mom. It was a long day, walking from store to store in the mall. "Do you want me to drop you off at the house?" Sheila asked. "Sure," replied Mom. We pulled up to the house and I gasped. The house showed no sign of having burnt the night before. "Oh my goodness," Mom's hands flew to her open mouth in surprise. "The rest of the town came together and rebuilt your kitchen while we were shopping." "Oh, thank you, Sheila." We stepped into the house and the kitchen was beautiful, with new cupboards and windows. A few days later, everyone came over to our house and we had a party as life carried on like normal. That was by Hannah Bouwens. So that's it for Fireside Stories. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next week.